Mexico, and and now, yeah, there's over $30 billion that are sent through the border, and it's not for drug cartels. It's for poor people that actually it's their only source of income, and that's how they live. So in between $150 to $300 are sent per family, and that's their only income that they have from people sending it over. So most people don't come here to, like Trump said, to rape and to steal. They come to hard work and do probably low-level entry jobs and send money back to their families because they probably wouldn't be doing so good as they're doing here. Like Mexico, minimum wage is $100 per month. So it's a big difference from having an income here in the States and having an income in Mexico. And what we've seen, is that most of this income that is coming is for constructing houses, food, and school for their kids. And normally what happens is that the father goes to the States, cannot come back to Mexico because if he does, he'll have a hard time getting back to the States again. So families get separated, and it's not actually for their cartels, as they said. That is another way. It's not through remittances that they're getting that money. It's selling the actual drugs and jumping it over here at the border and then moving the money around. And also another thing that for me, coming in 2014 in the first conference, I was everything that Jade spoke about. I did it, but in practical. I worked for banks for 14 years, for stockbrokers, mostly in Citigroup in Mexico. And suddenly I end up fighting crimes and in the securities investigations and fighting some crimes and seeing everything that he just talked about, but practical and sending, unfortunately, people to jail. So I had never spoken publicly, and the first time I spoke publicly that I was doing this was precisely in the 2014 Texas Bitcoin Conference, because you had Charlie Shrem. So I spoke with Charlie Shrem, and he sent me over to some reporters if I wanted to speak, but I had signed some documents that I couldn't speak about this. But well, they told me that right now I can speak about it. I just cannot say names. But one of the biggest problems that everything that he says happened is corruption and negligence inside banking. So there's people that actually have been doing their jobs for like 5, 10, 15, 20 years and get careless in the middle of the process, for example, in compliance, and that's how money laundering happens, and that's how people start stealing money. And the other thing that he says is very valid. Like it all started because I became a whistleblower because I saw my boss stealing millions of dollars. So I suddenly didn't know what was happening. I thought he was doing some trading with capital of the company, but he was actually stealing money, and he's right now in jail, unfortunately. And he did something very stupid, that never give someone your account, never loan your accounts. He used his mom and his wife's accounts to launder money, and they're in jail too. So never do that in your life. He's gonna be locked up for 22 years. So it's very dumb. If someone tells me, hey, can I use your credit card? Can I use your debit card? Can I use your bank account? Never loan that to anyone, because that can happen. And they try to negotiate with him to bring him back the money, but he thought that he was gonna get out of that. But well, that is apart from the conference that I did, and it has also to do with something that is happening now in Mexico. Besides the wall and besides the taxes and everything, like it's one of the main remittance corridors that we have in the world. Is the fourth biggest one, and for Mexico, it's right now. Oil used to be the biggest income that we had in U.S. dollars. Right now, it's remittances. So it's the most important income in U.S. dollars that we have in Mexico, and that is why it's so relevant, and that is also why the wall and the taxes that are proposed are very sensitive, especially for the exchange rate and for the Mexican economy. So that is one of the use cases that we're really looking into on how to help this and interconnect not only Mexico to the States, but to every other Bitcoin exchange and create this alternative system besides the Western Union. Because if you send money through Western Union, first of all, there is a cost, there is a fee, but also there's a big markup. So people lose about 10% of their money just sending money through the border, paying for the services. Also, all these people have to go physically for their money and withdraw it, and they know that they're getting their money and they have to stay in line for hours, so they become a target. So you can also see that in the communities where more remittances happen, is also where they get more robbed, because they become a target, being in line for 1, 2, 3, 4 hours, waiting to get the remittance, which is their only income, so they have no option. So something that we are also trying to do is how to help these people that in Mexico, around only there's only like 27 million credit cards, and there's almost 120 million people. So most people don't have credit cards. So it's very different from the States. People, for example, some of our partners and co-founders, they have lived in Canada and in the United States the whole of their life. And when they came back to Mexico, they say like they saw that almost 60% of the economy is informal economy. Like only 20% have social security. Only like 27 million credit cards. Most of them don't have debit cards, so they're unbanked. And one of the solutions that we're trying to do is not precisely being bank is the solution, but giving them financial services. And how are you going to bring them down? Bring it to them. So one of the ways and one of the reasons that Bitso was built, we started in April 2014, is to bring all this financial services to the Mexicans. And some of them don't even want to use a bank. Some of them don't trust a bank. Some of them only like cash, but they need financial services. And something funny that, for example, happened almost 2 years ago was when Steam, the video game company, started accepting Bitcoin payments through BitPay. So suddenly we had this huge rise in customers between 18 to 25 years, and everyone was depositing between $10 to $30, and they were depositing. We have funding through cash. It's limited to about $250, and we had all these little deposits from $10 to $30 happening all day, every day by all these people in between 18 to 25. We have an integration with BitPay, so BitPay, everything that happens in Mexico, we settle all BitPay payments. And this was happening with Steam. So we asked BitPay, so why are all these people sending Bitcoins to this address? And what happened is that there's a lot of video gamers in Mexico. None of them have credit cards. None of them have debit cards. So what they used to do was ask for their mom or their dad or family member to loan them their credit cards for them to buy their games. So Bitcoin became a solution for all these people, and that's why we had this huge surge in this population using Bitcoin. So suddenly that became one of the biggest use cases that we had for Bitcoin. And well, we have been seeing how it's been growing in Mexico. Not only the volume, but the people interested, the companies, and what they're doing with Bitcoin. And right now we are in a very hard negotiation because there's a new fintech law that has just been presented, and we have been working on it for over 2 years. And as in every country, there's a lot of resistance from central banks, banking association, and people that don't want this. And in Mexico, it's happening the same thing that happens in most of the countries. What is happening is that they say that they start to making Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies have a bad reputation. It's used for money laundering. It's just by criminals, blah, blah, blah. But that is something that from the beginning we have been very cautious because we expected this to happen. So actually we right now, unfortunately, most of the company is legal, compliance, and regulation, because we were expecting that to happen, and it's happening right now. So we have people with public policy. We have people that used to work in the equivalent of the Mexican SEC. We have people in the Mexican IRS that actually work for us. And what we have been proving is that we can do all the processes with compliance, AML, etc., like or better than even the banks. That is something that we have been doing, and was something that we have been planning, and something that we have been documenting and sharing with the authorities, and showing them that actually it's really hard to commit a crime and not be tracked by us or by if you use Bitcoin. And it's easier, and it's unfortunately most of the crimes are still committed in regular financial companies and regular banks. And on cash, like Mexico had the case for HSBC, which has been one of the biggest money laundering cases. You have had money laundering with cartels with almost every bank. Wachovia, we had HSBC, and that was billions of dollars. And even the market cap of all cryptocurrencies is not as big as for all the money that has been laundered through banks. So when people tell me, hey, if cryptocurrencies grow, will it be easier? No, the easiest thing is, as he said, do it through the banks, and unfortunately, no one is getting punished and no one's going to jail. They only pay a fine for less than 1% for what they laundered, which is very unfortunate. Well, so after this, and after all these negotiations, there was some unfortunate comments by the government of the Mexican Central Bank, which is becoming now the central bank of the central bankers. He's becoming the head of the Bank of International Payments right now, which is like the highest position for a central banker that can have in the world. So when he is done being the Mexican Central Bank governor, he's going to become the Bank of International Settlements head. And he made a very unfortunate comment about 2 months ago saying that cryptocurrencies are basically used. The basic use case for cryptocurrencies is for committing crimes and what is called in Mexico giros negros, which is places that you pay for prostitution, for people that are getting kidnapped and prostituted, illegal bars and clubs and whatever. And so what he said openly is that is a basic use case for Bitcoin, which is obviously a lie, and he has no numbers to prove that. We have numbers to prove what is going on in Mexico. So what we did was we started a campaign first called it was called Bitcoin is Legit, in which we told the users that they had to send out videos showing what they did with their Bitcoins and what they were doing from day to day. And most of them use it as an investment and as a savings because, first of all, yeah, Bitcoin has been doing great in the last years, but also the Mexican peso has been devaluating against the US dollar. So that is a way for their money not to lose any more value. Plus, it has been a great investment for them. But also, people are using it to send money abroad and to receive money and for online payments and for all these use cases like Steam, for people that actually need to pay online but do not have cards, do not have debit cards, do not have credit cards. So we started this campaign, and afterwards, and that is something that it's on my presentation. Do I have a clicker?
Otherwise, I could just hit the button.
Thank you. Oh no, can we go back? Well, okay. So after this campaign, we had a first earthquake, which is So we started this campaign after the first earthquake. We had an earthquake on the 7th of September, which was in the coast of Oaxaca and Chiapas, which is the two poorest states in Mexico. So people there even get paid less than minimum wage. It's one of the poorest parts in the whole country, and they got hit by the earthquake. So we started a donation campaign called Bitcoin Aid Mexico, and So this happened on the 7th of September, and we wanted to prove that besides all the use cases that our customers have, and all the work that we have been doing legitimizing Bitcoin and their uses, and show them that using it for crimes is a very small use case, and most of those people are not relevant. So we started this campaign after the earthquake. So we opened these wallets for Bitcoin, Ethereum, and Ripple. Right now, you can buy with Mexican pesos, Bitcoin, Ethereum, Ripple. We also have crypto-to-crypto exchanges for those Ripple, Ethereum, and also Bitcoin Cash. So we opened up these wallets, and we said that we were going to donate an extra 50,000 pesos, which is around $2,500 besides everything that got donated. So afterwards, We'll go to the next. Yeah. So we announced that we would be donating additionally. So we sent out the money out to the Mexican Red Cross, which is one of the institutions that most help in after disasters in Mexico. So this is one of the few institutions that actually go to where things happen and to help out people. And we had a total of 124,000 pesos, which is around $6,000, plus the 50,000 pesos that we send out. And just one day before, so we send out the money on the 18th of September to the Red Cross, and one day afterwards, it was the anniversary of the 1985 earthquake. And we had an earthquake drill in the 11 a.m. in the morning, and afterwards at 1 p.m., another earthquake happened. So it was a drill at 11 in the morning, and on the anniversary of the 85 earthquake, an actual earthquake happened. And this was the first time since 1995 that buildings collapsed in Mexico, and around 500 people have died. And this was just one day afterwards we had done the donation for the prior earthquake. And actually, what happened was very unfortunate because it was where the earthquake hit was in like one of the most popular hip areas in Mexico, which are called Condesa and Roma, where you have all the clubs and all the cool restaurants and people want to live there. And it's where most of the damage happened. And we had our offices there. And unfortunately, we also lost our offices, but nothing happened to any of us or our families. No one died. But when we went out and walked, like 3 blocks away, a building collapsed with people inside, and everything was like a war zone. And it was like this area where everyone wanted to live, a very cool place to be, and suddenly now it's a disaster zone. So we started to walk around and see what was happening. We tried to help, and it was very impressive. All the people that came out, Pablo, the CEO, and myself, we went walking around with other people. Some of them got depressed in the way and walked out, and we started helping with just removing with people rubble, and we were like 50 people, then we were 100 people, then we were like 500 people, and you were seeing all these people coming out and helping. And after this earthquake happened, like we said, like, what are we gonna do? We didn't have any more offices, but unfortunately we had all our equipment. We say, well, the company isn't the actual office, it's all of us doing something. So what we proposed was to open this campaign for another month. And for 1 week, for every donation that we got, we would pay an extra 50%. So if we got 1 Bitcoin, we would put an extra 0.5 Bitcoins, and we did that for the 3 wallets, for Bitcoin, Ripple, and Ethereum. So we opened that for a week, and it was impressive, all the help. And if someone actually donated, well, Danny also helped us out, and a lot of Bitcoin international communities helped us out spreading the word for the campaign. Suddenly we had people from Brazil, Argentina, United States, Canada, Europe writing about this donation campaign, donating money. I think it's the first time that smart contract did something in Mexico. There was this Ethereum company called, I think, Giveth, that set up a smart contract for Ethereum. So if you sent out an Ether, they would duplicate the Ethers, and then we would duplicate that again. So for every Ether sent out to their smart contract, they would send out 2, and we would make that another 2. So from 1 Ether, 4 Ethers were actually donated. So I think that is a first use case for smart contract in Mexico. Unfortunately, the ecosystem is not as developed. We are, for example, the only exchange there. There used to be 3 exchanges, most of them closed, so there isn't a big ecosystem, and we're working on that, developing. Last week, for example, we did a workshop with Microsoft and Consensus, and we have been trying to develop all this ecosystem, because there's a lot of potential. There's a lot of potential to do business and a lot of potential to make companies, but it's not happening right now. So we're trying to push this. So other things interesting are happening there. For example, we have the DEF CON conference next week in Cancun, in Mexico. So there is a lot of interest, but people know that it's not being as developed that it should be. For example, here in the States, you have hackathons, you have all these conferences. We only We're still working on developing that in Mexico and mostly Latin America. We have there are other events, for example, the Latin American Bitcoin Conference that goes every year to a different country. This year it's going to be in Colombia. Last year it was in Buenos Aires. The year before we had it in Mexico. So besides that, besides helping out and besides doing the donation, what we wanted to do is to prove a point that it's more people doing good with Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies than actually what regulators perceive as being criminals. So at the end, we got about 1.5 million pesos for this donation campaign. So around a million pesos got sent out by donors, and we gave out like 400,000 pesos, which is about $20,000, and we got like $50,000 from donors from all around the world. And at the end, we chose we chose two foundations. So half of that money went out again to the Red Cross, and the other part went out to Fundación Comunitaria Puebla, which had already evaluated over 1,000 homes, have already documented, had already been to the communities, have already made a report of what was happening. And they are reconstructing about 577 houses. Houses, the cost for each house is around $4,000. So it's a one-floor house with one dining room, one bathroom, and one granary where you stash your food. So it's what we did after the campaign was report this and report that this became one of the biggest use cases, for example, in Mexico, not doing illegal activity besides people sending out international payments and people sending out money to their families and making online payments, to prove that there are more people doing good things with cryptocurrencies in the world and in Mexico and helping out. And people ask us, where is all this help coming from? It's coming from all over the world. And there is complete transparency. We publish each one of the wallets. We also publish a step-by-step of how could they extract all the bill payments from the Mexican Central Bank. So there was absolute transparency. We became one of the biggest campaigns to aid after the earthquake. We became the most transparent one, and it wasn't our aim to be this, but these are tools that help you do that, and that help you have this transparency and help you have all this money that probably wouldn't have been going there if it wasn't because of cryptocurrencies. Probably all of this money would have never gotten there if it wasn't for crypto. So just want to thank everyone for letting me speak of what is going on and about this campaign, and thank you for everyone like Danny that helped us out spreading the word for this and proving that it's more people doing well with cryptocurrencies and Bitcoin than actual crimes being committed in money laundering. Thank you.
Well, thank you for your wonderful work. Yeah, big round of applause. We have about 5 minutes for questions if you want to take a few. Who has the first question? Yes, sir.
You mentioned something about family members transferring funds. I've helped some of my family members buy Bitcoin, and they've transferred me their funds, and I've just bought Bitcoin, and we're just cold storing, pretty much family, whatever approach. How do I need to go about that to avoid any issues? Because it's been transferred from other people, my mother, father, and sister, into my bank account, and I've bought for them. So didn't really they're not. So how do I avoid any kind of issue with that? I mean, you mentioned because it's not illegal funds. So if it's legal funds and you're just doing it for other people, do I need to kind of how do I go about clearing that with the government? You know what I mean?
In Mexico?
Here.
Oh, here in the States. Well, normally money comes from the States to Mexico, but I mean, like in Mexico, if you have any income, you have to declare what is the origin of those funds. You probably know that, yeah, he has his jobs, he bought some Bitcoin and he sent it over, and that's how you should be reporting it. What we tell people is just see it with your accountant, and what you need to know is if you received Bitcoin, if you received cryptocurrencies, you probably know what's the origin of the funds, unless you want to be outside the system or avoiding or doing something illegal. It's your personal choice, but you should know how or what is the source of the income.
Hey, Jose. So what do you think is the best way to get the message across for Bitso to people in Mexico that they're funding the wall by using Western Union?
Yeah, so there is a lot of uncertainty, and that's one of the reasons why Mexican peso has been devaluating. Risks about NAFTA being canceled and also the wall. But one of the use cases that we tell is like, you can avoid all these risks, getting cash, getting money transferred over, and they tell us if we will be able to help avoid this tax. Unfortunately, if that happened, probably they're gonna also be watching Bitcoin exchanges too and see if their money is being sent from Mexico to the United States. But mostly, you can send money easy, and the easiest way that we have been is proving that if you send $100 through Western Union, or if you send $100 through Bitcoin, just see the difference in the money that you will be receiving in pesos. That is the only thing that you need to prove for people to never go back to Western Union.
As well as there's a fee on the other end too when you receive. It's not just what's
Yeah.
here. They got to pay again.
Yeah, like when someone sends out money, we tell them this is the amount of pesos that you're gonna be having on the other side, and they can do it at the same time. Use Western Union, use your regular bank, and use Bitcoin at the same time, and you will always be getting more money, more pesos, if you do it through Bitcoin or cryptocurrencies.
All right, time for one last question. Yes, sir.
Thank you. So just curious about how you decided on the different cryptocurrencies that you selected for your exchange. So you had Bitcoin, Ethereum, and Ripple. So why not Litecoin, or what was the thinking there?
Okay, so we started just as a Bitcoin exchange because when we started, well, it had most of the market cap, most developments, and more, etc. Afterwards, we chose Ethereum because our partners liked really the technology and what was developing, the community, etc. And for Ripple, one of the investors is from Ripple. So originally we were a Ripple Gateway, but that didn't work out and they changed their business. So we dropped down being a Ripple Gateway, and afterwards this year we brought back the XRP. And for example, Bitcoin Cash, it was because of the fork. So a lot of people didn't withdraw their Bitcoins. So when this started taking off on the price and people expecting their Bitcoin Cash, what we did was list Bitcoin Cash. We explore other cryptocurrencies like Litecoin, and we have explored, we also been talking with Danny for Dash and other cryptocurrencies. But right now, there's two obstacles, and one of the biggest one is regulatory. Because of this new fintech law, the Mexican Central Bank has says that they are gonna evaluate all of the cryptocurrencies and they have to approve each one. We have told them that that is gonna be almost impossible because almost daily there's a new cryptocurrency right now. If we cannot keep up, let's see if they can keep up evaluating. And also another criteria is, for example, now that so many forks are happening, like, what are you going to do? You're going to say, this, we like this fork, we don't like this other fork, and what are we going to do with those, with other funds? So one of them is the regulatory obstacles, and the other one is we're not such a big team. We have been growing, but it's also been a big headache with the Ethereum fork, now with the Bitcoin Cash fork, now with the Bitcoin Gold fork, now with the Bitcoin 2x fork. So we want all of this to pass by and the law, and afterwards we would evaluate bringing other cryptocurrencies to the exchange.
Very good. All right. Well, thank you, Jose. Glad to have you here today. Great job.